25 Friday. Good afternoon, this is Balitang Fatimanyan bringing you the special broadcast on the Third Republic of the Philippines. I am Carmi Amparo.
And I'm Lovian Abraham. In today's segment, we're diving deep into our history characterized by political transformations, cultural resurgence, and the quest for true sovereignty.
On June 9, 1945, the Philippine Congress reconvened for the first time after the war. Brig General Manuel Roxas was chosen as the Senate President, paving the way for his future leadership in the country. In April 1946, Roxas, running under the newly founded Liberal Party, emerged victorious in the national election, defeating Sergio Osmeña of the Nacionalista Party, making Roxas the third and final president of the Commonwealth. After years of American colonial rule and Japanese occupation during World War II, the Philippines officially gained independence on July 4, 1946. The inauguration of the Third Philippine Republic was marked by U.S. Ambassador Paul McNutt lowering American flag and the subsequent raising of the Philippine flag by President Manuel Roxas. Let's now look into the achievements of the President of the Third Republic. Ms. Gatan?
Thank you, Ms. Amparo, the President of the Third Republic and their accomplishment. First, we have Mr. Manuel Roxas. He played a significant role in the country's rehabilitation after the war, securing a $25 million loan from the U.S., an additional $10 million from UNRRA. He also facilitated the U.S. Military Bases Agreement, the Bell Trade Act, which established free trade relations with the U.S., and the Parity Amendment, which granted U.S. citizens equal rights with Filipinos to develop the country's natural resources and operate public utilities. Next, we move on to Elpidio Quirino. Under his leadership, the Bell Mission Report was conducted, paving the way for significant economic advancement. The creation of economic institutions like the ACCFA and PACSA, infrastructure such as the Maria Cristina and the Ambuklao Dam project. In terms of social welfare, he created the Boys Town of the Philippines and served as an exemplary ambassador of goodwill and friendship. He was able to improve foreign affairs, however, was tainted with accusations of graft and corruption like the damaging scam on the U.S. war surplus property amounting to $50 million with $20 million in question and allegation that Liberal Party used it for its election campaign. Additionally, his administration struggled with the Hukbalahap Peace Program, which faltered due to perceived insincerity. Next, Mr. Ramon Magsaysay, the man of the masses. During his administration success in the Hukbalahap Amnesty Program, opened Malacanang for the people, the formation of SEATO, the Laurel-Langley Agreement, the Philippines-Japan Reparations Agreement, founding of the Social Security System, the Land Tenure Reform Act to address agrarian problems. Up next is Mr. Carlos P. Garcia. His notable achievements include the Filipino First Policy, the Austerity Program, and the Bolen-Serrano Agreement. Our next president is Diosdado Macapagal. During his time, notable achievements include the Decontrol Program, the Agricultural Land Reform Law, the official Philippine claim to Sabah, joined the Confederation Mafilindo, transfer of Independence Day from July 4 to Aguinaldo's June 12, and the use of Filipino language in official documents. Marcos implemented key economic reforms, stabilizing the country's finances through the effective collection of taxes, the imposition of new tax laws, and securing loans from foreign banks and governments. To address food security concerns, Marcos launched a campaign to promote the production of rice, particularly the IR8 hybrid miracle rice and other high-yielding rice varieties, leading to increased agricultural productivity. Under Marcos' leadership, significant investments were made in infrastructure development, including the construction of more irrigation systems, infrastructures of bridges, and roads like the North Diversion Road. Marcos also prioritized education, resulting in the construction of more schoolhouses, making him the president who built the most number of schoolhouses during his term. Furthermore, Marcos initiated improvements to the Philippine National Railways, intensive operations against smuggling, crime syndicates, and the Communist New People's Army, and holding the Manila Summit Conference in 1966. The second term was marked by overspending in the 1969 elections that led to higher inflation and the floating peso devaluated, the prevalence of dirty politics, rampage of graft and corruption in government, the widening gap between the rich and the poor, the impotency of the 1935 Constitution to cope with the new socio-economic problems, and the rising tides of crime, communism, and subversion resulted to student power and demonstrations.
Thank you, Ms. Felicia Gatan. To further elaborate on our topic, let's hear from Mr. Lavi Abriam, who will provide us with valuable insights into the Marcos regime. Mr. Abriam?
Since the Philippines achieved independence in July 1946, there emerged a persistent movement to change the Constitution of 1935. In light of the new political and social dynamics, the Constitution of 1935 became increasingly viewed as obsolete, no longer in harmony with the conditions of the times. Furthermore, in 1969, the Communist Party of the Philippines, or CPP, was founded under the leadership of Jose Mariciso.
Mr. Abriam, just to clarify, was the CPP directly responsible for the establishment of the New People's Army, or NPA?
Yes, Ms. Amparo. In the same year, the CPP established the New People's Army with Commander Dante, also known as Bernabe Buscaino, at the helm. Moving forward, a constitutional convention was convened, comprised of elected members, and was inaugurated on June 1, 1971. On August 21, 1971, the tragic Plaza Miranda massacre occurred during a Liberal Party campaign rally, resulting in the loss of 8 lives. This grave incident prompted President Marcos to suspend the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus on September 21 of the same year. By January of 1972, this writ was ultimately restored. However, on September 23, 1972, following an alleged assassination attempt against Secretary of Defense Juan Ponce Enrile, President Marcos took the national television to announce his proclamation of martial law. This proclamation has been signed since September 21.
Thank you, Mr. Abriam, for that comprehensive overview of the significant events surrounding the Marcos regime. The declaration of martial law under Marcos led to extensive violation of civil rights and liberties, characterized by numerous arrests, limitations on freedom of speech and assembly, and control over media and public utilities. This consolidation of power marked a significant shift towards authoritarian rule in the Philippines. Now, to continue our report on air, Mr. Cordero Ryan. Mr. Ryan?
During the Marcos regime, martial law was declared, beginning with a Presidential Decree No. 2 issued on September 26, 1972, which initiated a land reform program in the Philippines. Subsequently, on October 21, 1972, Marcos issued Presidential Decree No. 27, which limited the scope of land reform, leading to conflicts between the government forces and the Bangsamoro, resulting in casualties and property destruction on both sides. October 16 to 17, 1976, the majority of barangay voters, citizen assemblies, approved the continuation of martial law, effectively allowing Marcos to extend his dictatorship. Although martial law was formally lifted on January 17, 1981, opposition figures labeled this action as mere facelifting, suggesting that it was a precondition for the upcoming visit of Pope John Paul II. On June 16, 1981, immediately following the lifting of martial law, the first presidential election in 12 years took place. As expected, Marcos ran and won a massive victory of 88% over the other, almost unknown, candidates Alejo Santos of a Nacionalista Party faction and Cebu Assemblyman Bartolome Cabangbang of the Federal Party. On August 21, 1983, former Senator Benigno Ninoy Aquino was tragically shot dead on the tarmac of the Manila International Airport shortly after returning to the Philippines. This event sparked public outrage and investigation implicating military involvement, the prevailing economic and political instability resulted in growing calls for the removal of President Marcos, ultimately leading to a snap election held on February 7, 1986. Corazon Cory C. Aquino emerged as the leader of the opposition, resulting in Marcos' ousting and her subsequent ascension to the presidency.
On February 22, 1986, a FELCOM Atimba Reformed Armed Forces movement led by Colonel Gregorio Gringo Honosan sparked a series of events that dramatically changed the course of Philippine history. Lieutenant Michael Asperin and 18 soldiers were arrested for involvement in a spy operation at the Bonifacio Naval Station. This prompted Defense Minister Juan Ponce Enrile and General Fidel Ramos to withdraw their support for President Ferdinand Marcos. Archbishop Jaime Cardinal Sin, seeing the growing unrest, called on Filipinos to gather at EDSA in support of the rebels. On February 23, 3 million Filipinos had formed human barricades along EDSA, halting government forces led Brigadier General Tadyar. The power of people was undeniable. As the days passed, military defection followed and rebel forces targeted key points. Weakening Marcos' grip on power, Marcos' speech was abruptly cut off, signaling the beginning of the end for his regime. Then on February 25, Corazon Aquino was sworn in as the 11th President of the Philippines, with Salvador Laurier as Vice President. The fiscal revolution reached its climax as Marcos fled Malacanang, and each jubilant Filipino reclaimed their government. The overthrow of Marcos was celebrated worldwide, a powerful testament to the strength of democracy and the resilience of the Filipino spirit.
Thank you, Ms. Lagudas. This event was a reminder that when a nation stands together, change is not only possible, it is inevitable. Now, to continue on our report, on air is Ms. Ashley Ring Uy to discuss the end of Marcos regime and the rise of Aquino's power. Ms. Uy?
Thank you, Mr. Abriam. Now that Corazon Aquino is the new elected president, her first priority is to restore democracy to the Philippines. She wasted no time releasing political prisoners and reinstating the writ of habeas corpus, especially in Mindanao. Aquino also opened the gates of Malacanang Palace to the public, exposing the extravagant lifestyle of the Marcos family while the people had suffered in poverty. On March 25, 1986, President Aquino introduced the Freedom Constitution, a temporary framework to stabilize the nation. This was meant to guide the country towards lasting stability. To formalize the process, she created the Constitutional Commission in June 1986 to draft a new constitution. October 15, the commission approved the draft of the new constitution, which was then put to a national vote. In February 1987, the new constitution was peacefully ratified, marking a fresh chapter in Philippine democracy. With Aquino at the helm, the country embarked on a hopeful journey toward a better future.
With that inspiring progress towards democracy under President Aquino's leadership, we now turn to our next anchor, Ms. Cassandra Evangelista, who will delve into the passage of the new constitution and its key features. Ms. Evangelista?
Thank you, Mr. Abram. The passage of the new constitution in 1987 was a landmark achievement for the Philippines. The 1987 constitution emphasized human rights, equality, and democratic reforms. It also called for policies to promote a nuclear-free country, gender equality, family protection, and agrarian reforms, and anti-corruption measure. It also banned political dynasty, established a Bill of Rights, and set up a commission on human rights to protect the rights of all Filipinos. In terms of governance, the new constitution introduced a presidential system with clear checks and balance. The president was limited to a single 6-year term with no chance of re-election. The authority to declare martial law was restricted, with the president required to seek approval from the Congress to extend it beyond 60 days. The Constitution also laid the foundation for a bicameral Congress, greater public participation in lawmaking, and local government autonomy. Notably, it guaranteed free education up to the high school level for all citizens, ensuring that the future of the nation would be built on an educated populace.
Thank you, Ms. Evangelista. And with that, we conclude our overview of the landmark achievements of the 1987 Constitution and its impact on the Filipino people. To delve deeper into Aquino's economic challenges and international recognition, let's hear from Ms. Francesca Borja. Ms. Borja?
Thank you, Mr. Ibriam. In the aftermath of the 1987 peaceful elections, Senator Jovito Salonga became Senate President and Representative Ramon Mitra assumed the role of Speaker of the House. Aquino's administration inherited a daunting task, addressing the country's foreign debt, which had ballooned to over $26 billion. A major breakthrough came when President Aquino addressed the U.S. Congress in 1986, delivering a powerful speech about the Filipino people's struggle for democracy. Her words earned a standing ovation from U.S. lawmakers, and she was also named Time Magazine's Woman of the Year for her efforts in restoring democracy in the Philippines.
Despite the progress, Aquino administration faced multiple challenges, both political and natural fronts. In July 1987, the Philippine government launched a comprehensive agrarian reform program that aimed at redistributing agricultural lands. Meanwhile, the Presidential Commission on Good Government worked to recover ill-gotten wealth of the Marcoses family. Yet, Aquino's term was marked by several coup attempts. The most serious came in 1989 when rebels tried to seize Malacanang. Colonel Guerrero, one of the main figures behind the coup, was arrested, but he was later granted amnesty. Aquino's resilience and support of the Filipino people helped her weather these challenges.
The Aquino administration faced even more obstacles in the years that followed. In the 1990s, Central Luzon earthquake killed over 1,700 people and left much of the infrastructure in the ruins. Then in 1991, the eruption of Mount Pinatubo caused a widespread devastation and severely affected the Philippine economy. Shortly after the U.S.-Philippines military base agreement ended, signaling a significant shift in the country's foreign policy. Throughout all these difficulties, Aquino's leadership was crucial in steering the country through the turbulent times. Despite ongoing power outage and other setbacks, Aquino administration made the remarkable strides in advancing the country's democratic journey, further cementing her legacy as a symbol of democratic renewal in the Philippines.
That wraps up our coverage on the significant presidency of Cory Aquino. From the restoration of democracy to the drafting of a new constitution, her administration has undeniably marked a pivotal chapter in Philippine history.
As we conclude our report on the Third Republic of the Philippines, it's crucial to reflect on what this era has meant for our nation and our people. Thank you for joining us today. Let's carry forward the values of unity, resilience, and hope as we step into our future.
Stay connected with us for the latest news updates, analysis, and insight into what's happening in our country.
Once again, this is Carmi Amparo.
And this is Lovian Abraham.
Signing off, good afternoon. And may our shared vision for the future light the way for us all.